Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Troy, and in today's video we're walking through a top 10 list of tank mates for a Severum. I currently have 3 Severums in my 180 gallon aquarium here. I also have a Severum in my 75 gallon tank growing out. My brother Quinn has one in his classroom 75. So as you can tell, we love the Severum on this channel, and we can't wait to talk about the top 10 tank mates. Before we do that, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and guys, let's dive right in. Okay, so as I mentioned, I have 3 Severums in my 180 gallon aquarium here, including Big Red, my Turquoise Severum, and my Red Shoulder Severum. I've had them in this 180 gallon aquarium for nearly 3 years now, and they've done really well together. I also have a really small Red Spotgold Severum in my 75 gallon aquarium growing out. Severums are awesome cichlids for a few reasons. They get large, but they stay on the peaceful side most of the time, and there are some different color variations to choose from. Because they're on the peaceful end when it comes to cichlids, they can actually go in a tank with a wide range of fish. They can mostly hold their own with some of the mid-sized to larger American cichlids, and they can also go with some smaller community fish as well. With all of that being said, let's get into the list. Number 10 on the list is just other Severums. There are many different colors and types, and they are usually great tank mates with each other. Be careful if you get 2 of the same color variation though, as that could lead to some aggression between the 2. I would go with a slightly larger group if you're going to go with multiple of the same types. My favorite Severum is the Gold and Red Spotgold Severum. Big Red here has been tank mates with a Turquoise Severum and a Red Shoulder Severum for about 2.5 to 3 years now, and they've never picked on each other. If your tank is large enough, getting a group of Severums could be a great community setup. One of my favorite all-time cichlids is the Oscar. Oscars have great color and one of the best personalities of any fish you'll find in the hobby. The only reason why they're number 9 on the list and a bit lower than some other fish is just because it may not always work out. A lot of different Oscar fish have their own individual personalities, more so than any other fish I would say, but sometimes they could be a little more aggressive and not work out with Severums. I would say in the majority of instances though, if your tank size is large enough, the Oscar will work very well with most of the types of Severums. The Severum grows relatively quick and has good size as an adult, so they can hold their own against a large Oscar. Occasionally though, you could get an Oscar that doesn't want any tank mates and just decides to attack one day, but I think for the most part you should be fine with a Severum. But in most cases I would say it's a good match, and the larger the tank you have, the better odds of it working out long term. Plus you'll get the great personality of both the Oscar and the Severum, which makes for an awesome tank. Coming in at number 8 on the list is the Gourami. There are many different types of Gourami, but the best for Severums include the Pearl, the Blue, and Kissing Gourami, which are more of your mid-sized fish. I would stay away from the dwarf or even the giant Gourami here though. Pearl Gourami might be my favorite variation, but many of those fish can really stand out in the tank on their own. And even though they aren't cichlids, they can hold their own, and I've even seen them become the tank boss over some Severums. They are from Southeast Asia, and even though Gourami are adaptable to most water conditions, it's something to consider if you're trying to maintain a geo-specific stocking. Either way, the Gourami should be a good choice alongside a Severum in most cases. Coming in at number 7 on the list is the Chocolate Cichlid. This is my Chocolate Cichlid Bigfoot in my 180 gallon aquarium, and I would say he's on the semi-aggressive side. For the most part, he keeps to himself, and overall Chocolate Cichlids seem to be on the more peaceful end most of the time. Similar to Oscars, Chocolate Cichlids get pretty large, so the combination of Chocolate Cichlids, Oscars, and Severums do tend to go well because they're matched in size. Another reason they're great tank mates for the Severum or the Oscar is that they're also South American cichlids, so they share a lot of the same water parameter requirements, diets, and tank setups. Overall, the Chocolate Cichlid is a pretty good option for some of your larger cichlid community tanks. Coming in at number 6 on the list is the Uaru. Uaru are great tank mates for a Severum because they get very similar in size and shape, and they're very peaceful in demeanor. They actually have a lot of similarities with the chocolate cichlid when it comes to the overall appearance, but I would say they're a little more peaceful in general than the chocolate cichlid. As a juvenile, they look very different than when they are adult size, but once they're adults, they have that great coloration and that awesome orangish red eye that really stand out in an aquarium. Number 5 on the list is the Pleco. There are a ton of different types of Plecos, and the majority of them will go really well with a Severum. I actually ordered a few exotic Plecos for my cichlid tanks, and that's just a hint for an upcoming video. But for the Pleco, there are just a ton of different variations with patterns and colors that you can choose from. Plecos do really well as tank mates for most cichlids because they basically have body armor on, and they hide out most of the day, so they're not really swimming around in the same area as most cichlids. There are many other types of catfish out there that are very similar to the Plecos that could also really work with a Severum. They make for a very good cleanup crew along the bottom of your tank, or even some that can clean off some algae from your decor or glass, but just in general, Plecos are a very good option when it comes to cichlids, and I'm just starting to get into them more and more myself. Another great tank mate for the Severum, and coming in at number 4, is the Angelfish. Angelfish are South American cichlids, and they will be very compatible with the Severum. They get to a pretty good size as adults, so they hold their own against some of the bigger Severums. They share the same water parameters, diet, tank setup, and they swim around the tank in a very similar way as a Severum, which is just gently swimming back and forth. Overall, they're a very peaceful cichlid and a very good cichlid for beginners, so they make for a great tank mate option for most people, and they don't get quite as big as the Oscar or chocolate cichlid. So if you want a South American cichlid tank that's only about 75 gallons or so, an Angelfish along with Severums could be a great option. Number 3 on the list is the silver dollar. Silver dollars are very active swimmers. They are silver, flat-looking fish that swim back and forth in the tank pretty much all day long. Because they're such active swimmers, they give a lot of movement into the tank. For some South American cichlid tanks, you could just have fish kind of floating around, but something like the silver dollars gives a little more activity. Silver dollars can also be used as dither fish. As they swim back and forth in the tank, it makes other fish in the aquarium more comfortable, and they come out more often. So especially for the South American cichlids like the Severum, I really like the silver dollars. Number 2 on the list is the electric blue Acara. Of course, I had to have the electric blue Acara on a top 10 list, and especially for the Severum. I say this very often on the channel that one of my favorite combinations is the Severum and the electric blue Acara. They really complement each other in terms of color and their swimming behaviors. The Severum might just kind of float around, while the electric blue Acara are very active swimmers, and they provide a lot of activity and that pop of blue color that you don't really get with Severums or other South American cichlids. They're also very peaceful, and they tend to be pretty hardy, so overall they're just a great fish to keep. Okay, so coming in at number 1 on the list is the Geophagus. I kept this a little bit broad by just saying Geophagus because there are a lot of different types of species that work really well with the Severum, and we're going to walk through those today. Geophagus species are South American cichlids, and they have a very unique behavior of sifting through sand. Probably my favorite of all Geophagus is the redhead Tapajos here. I've had 7 in my 180 gallon aquarium, and they've been tank mates with the Severums for about 3 years now. They're usually on the more peaceful end of cichlids, but you can always run into exceptions. Some of the other species, like the Geophagus dindacneri, tend to be on the more aggressive side when it comes to cichlids, but I still think they're a pretty good tank mate option for the Severum. Another great Geophagus choice is the Spheni. These guys get more blue, shiny coloration throughout their body and some awesome spiked fins. I cannot wait for this group to be fully mature adults, as their colors are really going to start popping. Another great Geophagus option is the Altifrons. They are on the larger end when it comes to Geophagus, but they get great coloration and long extended trailers to their fins. Awesome fish that I'd highly recommend. And then there's the Geophagus brasiliensis, or the pearl cichlid. As adults, these guys are incredible. I've also heard that brasiliensis can get pretty aggressive, but even when they are I would say they are great tank mate options for the Severum. When it comes to Geophagus in general, I would definitely recommend a sand substrate so that they can sip through and they can keep the tank clean when you have some of your messier eaters like an Oscar or a Severum. So overall, just a great tank mate option, and I always love the combination of Severums, electric blue Acaras, and Geophagus together. So a few fish that didn't quite make the list. The first here is the green terror or gold sum. These are South American cichlids that just didn't make the list because they're a little aggressive at times. This one here in the classroom aquarium is actually pretty peaceful, so he would work great. The other cichlids in this aquarium could be potential tank mates for the Severum, including the convict and the Jack Dempsey. Also the firemouth cichlid. These last three were Central American cichlids, so technically their water parameters are usually a bit different than the South American cichlids, but usually they'll do just fine, especially tank-bred cichlids. Some tetras, like the Colombian tetras, work really well. I would stay away from some of the smaller neons, but some of the bigger tetras and barbs, I like the ball shark a lot. And then a lot of your catfish or bottom feeders like the bigger Cory cats could do just fine with Severums in most cases. Okay guys, that does it for our top 10 list of tank mates for a Severum. If we left anything off the list or you personally had success keeping a certain type of fish with Severums, please make sure to leave that down in the comments section. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week.